The massive chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as High Counselor Vextar raised his four-armed form from the central podium. 847 different species filled the curved seats that stretched up to the domed ceiling of Nexus Prime Station. Some breathed oxygen. Others, methane. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few existed as floating clouds of energy. But today, they all shared one common purpose. "The motion passes," Vextar announced, his voice carried by translation devices to every corner of the chamber. By a vote of 723 to 124, this council declares war on the species known as humanity and their world called Earth. The chamber erupted. The insectoid Korthani clicked their mandibles in rhythm. The aquatic tidal singers released harmonic frequencies that made the air shimmer. The crystalline nexus mines flashed with coordinated light patterns. Even the ancient ethereal collective, beings of pure energy, who rarely showed emotion, pulsed with approval. In the small section reserved for Earth's delegation, Ambassador Lee Min-jun sat perfectly still. He was a man in his 50s with graying hair and calm brown eyes. Next to him, Dr. Sarah Chen typed notes on her tablet, her face showing no surprise or fear. The two humans might have been attending a boring trade meeting instead of their own species' death sentence. Vextar's voice boomed again. Humanity stands accused of 17 violations of galactic law. They expand too quickly into new star systems. They contaminate other species with their chaotic cultural practices. Worst of all, they treat all sentient life as equals, disrupting the natural order we have maintained for 10,000 years. The crowd cheered again. Species that had never agreed on anything now united in their hatred of Earth. The proud Vorthak warriors banged their weapons against their armor. The merchant prophet clans calculated the wealth they would gain from human colonies. The fanatical purifier sect chanted prayers about cleansing the galaxy. Lee Min-jun slowly stood up. The chamber began to quiet as delegates noticed the human movement. All eyes turned to the small figure in the simple black suit. "High Counselor," Lee said, his voice steady and clear. "I request a formal copy of this declaration and the standard 30-day notification period, as outlined in Section 12 of the Galactic Accords." Confused murmurs rippled through the chamber. This was not how species usually responded to war declarations. There should be panic, threats, desperate pleas for mercy. Instead, the human sounded like he was filing paperwork. Vextar's four eyes narrowed. "You will have your formal documents, human. But understand this, your species has 30 days to surrender or face total annihilation. We have fleets from 50 different worlds ready to reduce Earth to ash." "Understood," Lee replied calmly. "Is there anything else that requires immediate attention? Or may we return to our quarters to begin preparations?" The silence stretched uncomfortably. Even the energy beings of the ethereal collective seemed puzzled by humanity's reaction. "Doctor." Chen finished typing and closed her tablet with a soft click that somehow echoed in the vast chamber. "You are dismissed," Vextar said finally, uncertainty creeping into his voice for the first time. As the session ended and delegates began filing out, Lee walked slowly through the crowd. Species moved aside as he passed, watching him with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Some expected him to collapse from fear. Others thought he might attack someone in desperation. Instead, Lee stopped at the section where the Vorthak delegation was gathering their weapons and honor banners. War leader Grunthak, a massive being covered in scars from countless battles, looked down at the small human. "Have you come to beg for mercy, soft flesh?" Grunthak rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. Lee looked up at the towering warrior with the same calm expression he had worn throughout the trial. "Not at all. I simply wanted to say something to the Vorthak people." The other Vorthak warriors gathered around, their hands resting on their weapon hilts. They lived for battle, and had never met a species that did not fear their reputation. "Speak then," Grunthak commanded. Lee nodded respectfully. The Vorthak have always prided themselves on honorable combat. Your culture has built entire cities around the concept of fair fights and worthy opponents. I wonder how you will feel about what comes next. The words were not threatening. Li's tone remained polite and professional, but something about the way he said them made the great warrior take a step back. What do you mean, human? Li smiled, but it was not a happy expression. It was the look of someone who knew a secret that others would soon learn. You will understand in time, war leader. I hope when you do, you will remember that we tried to avoid this. Before Gronthok could respond, Li walked away. Dr. Chen followed, still taking notes. The Vorthok warriors watched them go, confused and somehow unsettled by the encounter. Li and Chen returned to their quarters in the diplomatic section of Nexus Prime. The rooms were simple and clean, designed to accommodate any type of sentient life. Li sat at the small desk and activated his secure communication array. A holographic image appeared, showing Admiral Patricia Ross in the command center of Earth Defense Fleet headquarters. Behind her, banks of screens showed star charts, ship positions, and tactical analyses. Ambassador, Admiral Ross said, we monitored the proceedings. The vote went exactly as you predicted. Li nodded. Phase 1 is confirmed. They have taken the bait. The galaxy now believes we are weak and defenseless. How are our preparations? All teams are in position, the Admiral replied. Dr. Martinez's Psychological Warfare Division is ready. Captain Park's Special Forces units have been briefed. The cultural analysis teams have finished their profiles on all major council species. Dr. Chen looked up from her notes. The Vorthak will be our first target. Their honor-based culture makes them predictable. If we can turn them, the others will begin to doubt. Li stared out the small porthole at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, fleets were gathering to destroy his home world. Billions of humans were counting on him to find a way to save them without firing a single shot. Begin the Cascade Protocol, he said quietly. And may God forgive us for what we are about to do to them. The communication ended, leaving Li and Chen alone in their quarters. Outside, the galaxy celebrated the coming destruction of humanity. Inside, 2 humans prepared to show 847 alien species exactly why underestimating Earth was the last mistake they would ever make. The war had been declared. Now it was time for humanity to pick their targets. War leader Gronthak stood in the command center of his flagship, watching dozens of Vorthak battlecruisers move into formation around Vorthak Prime. The sight should have filled him with pride. Instead, he kept thinking about the small human's words from 3 days ago. Prepare the fleet for hyperspace, he commanded his warriors. The Council expects us to reach human space within 20 days. And Perds, his second-in-command, Battlemaster Kreshva, stepped forward. War leader, our scouts report that human worlds show no military buildup. Their ships appear to be simple cargo vessels and exploration craft. This will be easier than hunting younglings. Gronthak nodded, but the unease remained. In 500 years of warfare, he had learned to trust his instincts. Something about Ambassador Li's behavior bothered him. No species accepted death so calmly. On the planet below, normal Vorthak life continued. Warriors trained in combat arenas while younglings learned the ancient codes of honor. The Vorthak had built their entire civilization around the concept of worthy battle. They believed that strength in combat proved the value of one's soul. A communication signal interrupted his thoughts. War leader, we have an incoming transmission from Nexus Prime. Ambassador Li requests permission to visit Vorthak Prime under diplomatic immunity. Gronthak's 4 hands tightened into fists. The human comes here? After his people have been sentenced to death? He claims to bring Earth's formal surrender documents, the communications officer reported. For a moment, Gronthak considered refusing. But Vorthak Honor Code required them to hear surrender offers, even from doomed enemies. Grant him safe passage, but double the guards and scan his ship for weapons. 2 days later, a small human shuttle landed at the capital city's diplomatic center. Li stepped out, wearing the same simple black suit, followed by Dr. Chen and a third human Gronthak had not seen before. This new human was a woman, shorter than Li, with dark hair tied back, and calm eyes that seemed to notice everything. The Vorthak escort led them through the city streets. Massive stone buildings reached toward the sky, decorated with carvings that showed the greatest battles in Vorthak history. Warriors stopped their training to stare at the humans walking among them. In the Hall of Honorable Combat, Gronthak waited on his throne of carved battlehorn. Hundreds of Vorthak warriors lined the walls, their weapons gleaming in the ceremonial lights. The hall had witnessed thousands of challenges, victories, and honorable deaths. Li approached the throne and bowed slightly. War Leader Gronthak, I thank you for receiving us. Speak your surrender terms, human, Gronthak growled. Make them quick. My fleet grows impatient for battle. But Li shook his head. I have not come to surrender. I come to issue a challenge. The hall erupted in surprised roars and weapon rattling. No species had ever challenged the Vorthak in their own ceremonial hall. It was either the bravest or most foolish act Gronthak had ever witnessed. You dare? Gronthak rose from his throne, his massive form towering over the humans. You would challenge Vorthak honor in this sacred place? Not me personally, Li replied calmly. My people send their greatest warrior to face yours. Single combat, according to your ancient laws. If we lose, humanity surrenders without resistance. If we win, the Vorthak withdraw from the Council's war. The hall fell silent. Every Vorthak knew the law. No honorable challenge could be refused. But they also knew no alien species had ever produced a warrior capable of defeating Vorthak champions. Gronthak studied the three humans. Li looked like an administrator. Dr. Chen appeared to be a scientist or scholar. The third human was small by Vorthak standards, perhaps half the size of their smallest warrior. This female is your champion? He asked, pointing to the unknown woman. Li nodded. Captain Park Soo-jin, of Earth Defense Forces. She volunteers to face your best warrior. Laughter echoed through the hall. The idea of such a small being challenging Vorthak's strength seemed absurd, but Gronthak noticed that Captain Park did not laugh. She stood quietly, her posture relaxed but alert. Very well, Gronthak announced. Champion Brektor will accept this challenge. A massive Vorthak warrior stepped forward. Brektor stood 3 meters tall and weighed as much as a small vehicle. His body showed scars from hundreds of battles. In his hands, he carried weapons that had crushed the bones of countless enemies. Captain Park walked to the center of the combat circle. She wore simple clothing and carried no visible weapons. Next to Brektor, she looked like a child facing a monster. Begin, Gronthak commanded. Brektor charged forward with a war cry that shook the hall. His massive weapon swung toward Park's head with enough force to shatter stone. But when the weapon reached where she had been standing, Park was no longer there. The human moved like flowing water. She stepped aside from Brektor's attack, then struck him precisely behind his left knee with her bare hand. The giant warrior stumbled, but did not fall. Impossible, Kreshva whispered. No soft flesh could move that fast. But Park was just beginning. As Brektor turned to face her, she spoke in perfect Vorthak language. Your stance favors power over balance, honored warrior. Your ancestors would teach you differently. 1. The words hit Brektor harder than any physical blow. How did this alien know the ancient fighting wisdom of his people? Brektor attacked again, more carefully this time. But Park seemed to know where every strike would land before he made it. She avoided his weapons while delivering precise hits to nerve clusters that Vorthak medical science had thought were secret. More disturbing than her skill was what she said during the fight. She spoke of Vorthak honor, quoted their oldest battle poems, and showed respect for their warrior traditions that many Vorthak younglings had forgotten. "You fight with great skill," Park said as she ducked another attack. "But you fight with anger instead of purpose. Your great-grandfather Thektor would remind you that rage makes warriors predictable." Brektor stopped mid-swing. Thektor had been his great-grandfather's name, but no record of that existed in any galactic database. How could this human know such details? The fight continued for an hour. Slowly, carefully, Park wore down the massive warrior, using techniques he had never seen. She did not try to overpower him. Instead, she used his own strength against him, redirecting his attacks and targeting vulnerable points with surgical precision. When Brektor finally fell, unconscious but unharmed, the hall remained silent. No one cheered. No one moved. They had just witnessed something that challenged everything they believed about strength and combat. Park knelt beside the fallen champion and spoke a traditional Vorthak prayer for defeated warriors. Then she stood and faced Gronthak. "The victory is mine, war leader. But I take no joy in defeating such an honorable opponent." Gronthak stared at the small human. He had never seen anyone combine such deadly skill with such deep respect for their enemies. This was not the behavior of a weak species. This was the mark of true warriors. "The challenge is decided," he announced to the hall. "The Vorthak will honor our agreement." But as he spoke the ritual words, Gronthak realized that something fundamental had changed. The humans had not just won a fight. They had shown the Vorthak something about honor that they had forgotten. That true strength came from understanding one's enemy, rather than simply overpowering them. Later that evening, as Lee's shuttle prepared to leave, Gronthak met privately with the human ambassador. "How?" the war leader asked simply. Lee smiled the same knowing expression he had worn at Nexus Prime. "We study those we hope to understand, war leader. Your people are not our enemies. They never were." "Endon?" As the human ship disappeared into hyperspace, Gronthak sent an urgent message to the Galactic Council. The Vorthak would not be participating in the war against Earth. Any species capable of producing such warriors, he declared, deserved respect rather than destruction. In the Hall of Honorable Combat, Captain Park's victory was already being carved into the stone walls, alongside the greatest battles in Vorthak history. But the more Gronthak thought about it, the more he suspected that the real victory belonged to the quiet diplomat who had somehow turned certain death into honored alliance. High Counselor Vextar stared at the emergency report with growing disbelief. The Vorthak had withdrawn from the anti-human coalition. The galaxy's most feared warriors now claimed that humanity deserved respect rather than destruction. "This must be some kind of mistake," he growled to his aide. "The Vorthak live for war. They would never protect the humans." But the message was clear. War leader Gronthak had sent detailed reports about humanity's unexpected capabilities and recommended immediate peace negotiations. Worse, other species were beginning to ask questions about the Vorthak decision. On the other side of the galaxy, Ambassador Lee's shuttle approached the ocean world of Aquatia Prime, home to the Tidal Singers. Dr. Chen reviewed their cultural files as the planet's blue surface filled the view screen. "The Tidal Singers consider themselves the galaxy's greatest artists," she explained. "Their entire society is built around sonic communication and harmonic beauty. They joined the Council's war because they believe human noise pollution will destroy galactic culture." Lee nodded thoughtfully. "What do we know about their art forms?" "They create massive symphonies using ocean currents and whale-like songs. Each composition takes decades to complete and involves thousands of singers working together." Captain Park, who had remained aboard as military advisor, looked up from her own reports. "Their military is weak, but their cultural influence is enormous. Hundreds of species copy their artistic styles." The shuttle descended into Aquatia Prime's vast oceans. Underwater cities stretched across the seafloor, their crystalline spires glowing with bioluminescent light. The tidal singers themselves resembled Earth's whales, but with delicate tentacles that could manipulate sound waves with incredible precision. Elder song-keeper Melodic Current received the human delegation in the Grand Concert Hall. The massive underwater chamber was designed to amplify the tidal singers' complex harmonies. Hundreds of the whale-like beings floated in the water around them, their songs creating a symphony that touched the visitors' souls. Humans, Melodic Current sang, her voice carrying layers of meaning through harmonic frequencies. You come to the source of true beauty to beg for mercy? Your chaotic noise has already damaged too many worlds. Lee activated a small device he had brought from Earth. Elder Songkeeper, we come not to beg, but to share. We believe you will find human music interesting. The device projected holographic images while playing audio recordings. First came the songs of Earth's whales, their deep calls echoing across ocean depths. The tidal singers' own singing stopped abruptly as they heard creatures from another world expressing emotions they recognized. Impossible, whispered one of the younger singers. These are untrained animals, yet their songs carry such longing. But Lee was just beginning. The device shifted to human compositions that incorporated whale songs, environmental recordings that blended natural and artificial sounds. Then came Mozart's symphonies, with their mathematical precision and emotional complexity. The tidal singers had never heard organized sound that could be both logical and beautiful. Next came jazz music, with its improvisation and controlled chaos. The tidal singers prided themselves on planned compositions, but they found themselves drawn to music that could surprise even its creators. Then, electronic music that used mathematical algorithms to generate new harmonies. Finally, Lee played recordings of human children singing simple lullabies. The innocent voices, untrained but filled with pure emotion, brought complete silence to the concert hall. How many different music forms do humans create? Melodic Current asked, her song trembling with something that might have been awe. Thousands, Dr. Chen replied. Every human culture develops its own musical traditions. We have over 200 different instruments and hundreds of unique singing styles. Lee pulled up more recordings, heavy metal music that used distortion and power to express anger and rebellion. Country songs that told stories about simple human experiences. Classical Indian music with its complex scales and spiritual meanings. African drumming that connected entire communities through rhythm. And this is just Earth, Lee said quietly. Human colonies have created new music by combining our traditions with the sounds of alien worlds. We do not replace local cultures. We learn from them and create something new. The tidal singers floated in stunned silence. Their entire identity was built on being the galaxy's supreme artists. But humans had shown them thousands of art forms they had never imagined. More importantly, humans seemed to create art not for dominance, but for the pure joy of creation. The children's songs, Melodic Current sang softly. They have no training, no technique, yet they move the soul more than our greatest masterpieces. How is this possible? Lee smiled. Because they sing not to prove their skill, but to share their happiness. Human art comes from the heart, before the mind. Young songkeeper Rising Tide swam forward eagerly. Could humans teach us these improvisation techniques? Our music follows patterns set down for millennia. End quote. But this jazz you played, it seems alive. We would be honored to share, Lee replied. But we cannot do so if our species is destroyed. The concert hall erupted in urgent singing as the tidal singers debated among themselves. Their harmonic arguments created a symphony of confusion and excitement. They had joined the Council's war to protect galactic culture from human contamination. Now they realized that destroying humanity would eliminate the galaxy's most diverse artistic tradition. Elder songkeeper Melodic Current rose to the center of the hall. The tidal singer collective withdraws from the war against Earth. Any species capable of such artistic diversity must be preserved and studied, not destroyed. 2 days later, Lee's shuttle arrived at the crystal formations orbiting Nexus Prime. The crystalline beings known as the Nexus Minds lived in perfectly organized geometric structures that reflected their logical, mathematical approach to existence. Central Node Prime Logic received the humans in a chamber that looked like the inside of a computer. Every surface showed flowing equations and data streams. The Nexus Minds themselves appeared as collections of floating crystals that pulsed with calculated light patterns. Humans. Prime Logic communicated through direct data transmission. You are mathematically inferior. Your chaotic thought patterns disrupt logical systems. State your purpose, quickly. Lee activated a different device. This time, holographic images showed human mathematical achievements. Einstein's theories of relativity that revealed the hidden geometry of space and time. Gödel's incompleteness theorems that proved mathematics itself contained beautiful paradoxes. Interesting, Prime Logic admitted. Your Einstein discovered logical relationships we had not calculated. But this is mere computation. Dr. Chen stepped forward with additional files. We would like you to examine human literature and philosophy. Stories that use logic to explore impossible scenarios. She showed them works of science fiction that used mathematical concepts to build entire imaginary universes. Fantasy novels that created internally consistent magic systems based on logical rules. Philosophy that asked questions about the nature of existence itself. These are logical paradoxes, Prime Logic observed. How can fictional constructs follow mathematical laws? Because humans can hold contradictory truths simultaneously, Lee explained. We can be logical and emotional, scientific and artistic, individual and collective. Your minds seek single correct answers. Ours find meaning in questions that have multiple solutions. The Nexus Minds processed this information with increasing fascination. They had always believed that chaos was the enemy of logic. But humans seemed to find logical patterns within chaos itself. Lee showed them recordings of human debates where people argued opposite sides of complex questions. Instead of seeking victory, the goal was to understand the issue more completely. He showed them human games like chess, where logical thinking created infinite possibilities for creative expression. You are living paradoxes, Prime Logic concluded, after several hours of analysis. This should be impossible. Yet you function as a successful species. You represent the galaxy's most fascinating logical puzzle. End quote. When the humans left, the Nexus Minds sent their own withdrawal notice to the Galactic Council. Destroying humanity, they calculated, would eliminate the most interesting mathematical problem they had ever encountered. Back on Nexus Prime, Vextar received the second withdrawal notice with growing panic. 2 major council supporters had abandoned the war in less than a week. Other species were beginning to question whether the humans were truly as weak as they seemed. But Lee's shuttle was already heading toward its next destination, where the merchant profit clans waited. And for the first time since declaring war on humanity, Vextar began to wonder if they had made a terrible mistake. Trademaster Coin Counter floated in his zero-gravity office, surrounded by holographic displays showing profit margins from across the galaxy. The profit clans had built their civilization around a simple principle. Everything had a price. And every price could be negotiated. The humans arrive tomorrow, his assistant reported. Should we prepare the standard surrender terms? Coin Counter's multiple eyes focused on financial projections. Calculate the profit from stripping human colonies. Their worlds contain valuable minerals, and their technology might have some market value. But when Lee's shuttle docked at the Profit Clan trading station, the human carried neither surrender documents nor treasure to bargain with. Instead, Dr. Chen brought something the Profit clans had never seen before: a complete economic analysis of what the galaxy would lose if humanity disappeared. Trade Master, Lee said politely as they met in the luxurious negotiation chamber. We wish to discuss business with the galaxy's finest merchants. CoinCounter's tentacles twitched with interest. The humans spoke his language. What do you offer? Soon-to-be-extinct species. Dr. Chen activated her holographic projector. The chamber, filled with economic data, that made even the profit-obsessed prophet clans pause in surprise. Human colonies generate 17% of all galactic trade. She began. Our worlds produce food that feeds 3 billion beings across 200 systems. We manufacture consumer goods that 73 species have come to depend on. The numbers were staggering. Humans had only been in space for a few centuries, but they had become essential to galactic commerce. Their adaptability meant they could farm on worlds other species found unusable. Their creativity produced innovations that other civilizations purchased eagerly. More importantly, Lee added, humans are the galaxy's best customers. We buy art from the title singers, technology from the crystal builders, luxury goods from dozens of species. Our consumption patterns drive entire sectors of the galactic economy. CoinCounter studied the data with growing alarm. The prophet clans had been so focused on the immediate wealth from conquering human worlds that they had not calculated the long-term economic damage. These numbers cannot be accurate, he protested. Humans are a young species with primitive technology. Dr. Chen smiled and pulled up more files. Our primitive technology includes innovations that other species now license for billions of credits annually. Human-designed faster-than-light engines are 30% more efficient than previous models. Our medical techniques have extended lifespans for dozens of species. She showed recordings of human-managed trade networks that had turned failing colony worlds into profitable ventures. Humans did not just extract resources from planets. They found ways to make entire systems more productive. But our greatest economic value, Lee said quietly, is our role as neutral mediators. Humans broker trade deals between species that refuse to negotiate directly. We have prevented 14 trade wars in the past decade alone. The Trademaster's calculator mind was working furiously. Trade wars cost the galaxy trillions of credits. If humans disappeared, ancient hostilities between species would destroy carefully built commercial relationships. You are trying to trick us with false numbers, CoinCounter accused. Verify them yourself. Dr. Chen replied calmly. Check the trade databases. Calculate how much wealth the galaxy will lose when human colonies stop producing, when human consumers stop buying, when human mediators stop preventing conflicts. For 3 days, the prophet clans ran their own analysis. Teams of expert economists worked around the clock, checking every number the humans had provided. The results were devastating. Destroying humanity would trigger the worst economic disaster in galactic history. Hundreds of species would lose their primary customers. Trade routes that depended on human worlds would collapse. Without human mediators, old conflicts would restart and destroy trillions of credits worth of infrastructure. Worse, the prophet clans realized they had been thinking too small. Humans did not just participate in the galactic economy, they were creating entirely new markets. Human art, music, literature, and entertainment were becoming valuable exports. Human innovation was solving problems that other species had given up on. The projected losses are unacceptable, CoinCounter announced to his clan leaders. Destroying humanity would cost us more than any war in history. The prophet clans immediately withdrew from the anti-human coalition and began negotiating exclusive trade agreements with Earth. Within hours, their withdrawal notice reached the Galactic Council, along with detailed economic projections that terrified other species. But Lee's work was far from over. His shuttle now approached the ancient realm of the ethereal collective. Beings of pure energy who considered themselves far superior to corporeal species. High ethereal luminous wisdom received the humans in a chamber that existed partly in normal space and partly in dimensions beyond physical understanding. The ethereal collective had evolved past the need for physical bodies millions of years ago. They viewed younger species as barely intelligent animals. Flesh creatures. Luminous wisdom's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. You dare to enter our sacred realm? We joined the Council's war because your chaotic existence disturbs the cosmic order. Li bowed respectfully. Ancient One, we come seeking wisdom from those who have transcended physical limitations. The flattery was obvious, but it worked. The ethereals prided themselves on their superior evolution and rarely received proper acknowledgement from younger species. Speak quickly, animal thing. Your presence here is like noise in a perfect symphony. Dr. Chen activated recordings of human colonies, but these were different from the military or cultural demonstrations they had shown other species. These recordings focused on terraforming projects where humans had transformed dead worlds into thriving ecosystems. We do not seek to impress you with our primitive achievements, Li said carefully. We simply wonder if the ethereal collective has considered what humanity represents in terms of cosmic development. The recordings showed human scientists working to restore damaged planets, polluted worlds, slowly cleaning themselves under human guidance. Dead systems coming back to life through careful ecosystem management. You repair broken worlds, luminous wisdom observed with surprise. Most species simply move on when they have exhausted a planet's resources. Humans see potential where others see failure, Dr. Chen explained. We believe that growth and change are fundamental forces of the universe. When we find a world that has stopped growing, we try to help it begin again. More recordings showed human colonies that had become homes for refugee species whose own worlds had been destroyed. Humans did not just tolerate alien neighbors, they actively helped other species rebuild and thrive. Your people are gardeners, another ethereal voice whispered in recognition. You do not simply inhabit worlds, you help them become better versions of themselves. Li nodded. We have learned that the universe is not a finished creation. It is still growing, still becoming something greater. We see ourselves as partners in that process. The ethereal collective fell silent for long minutes. They had achieved perfect individual evolution, but they had stopped growing eons ago. They had forgotten that progress meant constant change, constant improvement. You represent something we had not considered, luminous wisdom finally admitted. You are not just another animal species competing for resources. You are agents of cosmic growth itself. The ethereal collective withdrew from the war, declaring that destroying humanity would interfere with universal development patterns that even they did not fully understand. As Li's shuttle departed their realm, Dr. Chen checked the updated council roster. Only 3 major powers remain committed to our destruction: the hegemony, the purifier sect, and a handful of their dependent species. Li studied the data with grim satisfaction. Vextar must be getting desperate. The purifier sect will be our most dangerous challenge yet. Their fanaticism makes them unpredictable, Captain Park warned. They believe in absolute purity and view human diversity as a cosmic infection. Li nodded grimly. The next phase of their mission would require a very different approach. The purifier sect could not be negotiated with, impressed, or reasoned with. They would have to be shown the true consequences of their beliefs. But as the shuttle headed toward purifier space, Li felt confident that humanity's greatest strength, their ability to understand and work with others, would prove superior to any fanaticism. Supreme Purifier, Zealot Prime, stood before the massive statue of the First Pure, the legendary founder of the Purifier sect. Around him, thousands of identical beings chanted prayers for galactic cleansing. The Purifier sect had engineered themselves for absolute uniformity. Same height, same appearance, same thoughts. The contaminated humans approach our sacred space, reported Sub-Purifier Unit 7. They request permission to land and discuss surrender terms. Zealot Prime's perfect features showed no emotion. Grant them entry. We will demonstrate what happens to species that spread their chaos through the galaxy. Their corruption, Ends here. Lee's shuttle entered Purifier space under heavy escort. The Purifier worlds showed no variation or creativity. Every building was identical. Every citizen looked the same. Every thought followed approved patterns. It was order, taken to its absolute extreme. "This is not going to work like the others," Captain Park observed grimly. Dr. Chen reviewed their intelligence files. The Purifier sect believes that the universe's natural state is perfect order. They view evolution, creativity, and change itself as cosmic diseases to be eliminated. Lee studied the sterile landscape below. "What?" Park turned to stare at him. "That's suicide. They will torture us for information and then execute us publicly." "Exactly," Lee replied calmly. "And in doing so, they will reveal their true nature to the galaxy." The human shuttle landed at the Purifier capital city, a place of perfect geometric buildings and streets, arranged in mathematical patterns. Everything was clean, ordered, and completely lifeless. Zealot Prime met them in the central purity chamber, surrounded by hundreds of identical guards. "Humans," he spoke with a voice that carried no inflection or personality. "You have come to witness the cleansing of your contaminated species." We have come to understand your philosophy," Lee replied respectfully. "The Purifier sect represents the ultimate achievement of organized civilization." The flattery meant nothing to Zealot Prime. "Your words are contamination. Your very presence spreads chaos. Guards, take them to the purification centers." Lee and Dr. Chen did not resist as they were led away. Captain Park was separated from them and taken to a different facility. The purification centers were sterile white rooms designed to break down a prisoner's individuality before execution. But Lee had counted on this. As the days passed, he did something the purifiers had not expected. He simply talked to his guards. "Your society has achieved perfect order," he said to Guard Unit 12 during a meal period. "But I am curious about something. Before the purifiers created this perfection, what were your people like?" Unit 12 was programmed not to engage with prisoners, but the question puzzled him. "We were contaminated with individual thoughts and chaotic behaviors." "What kind of chaos?" Lee asked with genuine curiosity. Despite his conditioning, Unit 12 found himself answering. Some created art. Others sang songs. They formed emotional attachments and had different opinions about things. "That sounds terrifying," Lee said seriously. "Individual thoughts must have caused great suffering." "Yes," Unit 12 agreed. But something in his voice suggested uncertainty. Dr. Chen, in her own cell, was having similar conversations with Guard Unit 15. "Your people must have been very brave to give up individual identity for the greater good," she said. "It takes courage to surrender everything that makes you unique." "Uniqueness is contamination," Unit 15 replied automatically. "Of course," Chen agreed. "But still, the sacrifice must have been difficult. To never again experience the joy of creating something new, or the satisfaction of solving a problem in your own way." Unit 15 had never considered joy or satisfaction as positive emotions. The purifier conditioning taught that such feelings were selfish contamination. But Chen's words awakened something in his perfectly ordered mind. Meanwhile, Captain Park was in a military facility being interrogated about human defense capabilities. But instead of revealing secrets, she asked questions about purifier military tactics. "Your forces achieve perfect coordination," she said to Interrogator Unit 3. "Every soldier knows exactly what every other soldier will do in any situation." "Correct. This gives us absolute tactical superiority. But what happens when you encounter something unexpected?" Park asked. "If every soldier thinks identically, how do you adapt to new situations?" The question troubled Unit 3. Purifier military doctrine had never addressed adaptation because they believed perfect planning eliminated the need for change. As the days passed, more guards began experiencing something they had never felt before: doubt. The humans did not try to convert them or argue against purifier philosophy. Instead, they simply asked questions that made the guards think about what they had given up. News of the human capture spread throughout purifier space. Citizens gathered to watch the public executions that would demonstrate the fate of all contaminated species. The event would be broadcast across the galaxy as a warning to others. But when execution day arrived, something unprecedented happened. 12 guards requested permission to speak privately with Zealot Prime. Supreme Leader, Unit 12 said hesitantly, "The human prisoners have spoken of concepts we do not understand. They describe experiences called creativity and individual growth that seem appealing." Zealot Prime's perfect features contorted with rage. "You have been contaminated. Report to the repurification centers immediately." But Unit 15 stepped forward as well. "Supreme Leader, the humans have made us question whether perfect order is truly perfect. If we eliminate all change and growth, have we not eliminated life itself?" Within hours, half the guards in the purification centers were reporting similar doubts. The human contamination was spreading through simple conversation. Worse, some guards were beginning to express individual thoughts and opinions. Zealot Prime ordered immediate public execution for Li, Chen, and Park. But when the guards came to collect them, many hesitated. They had begun to see the humans not as enemies, but as beings who had shown them possibilities they had never imagined. The executions proceeded as planned before millions of purifier citizens and galactic observers. But as Li walked the execution platform, he spoke loudly enough for all to hear. "People of the Purifier sect, you have achieved something remarkable. You have eliminated war, crime, and conflict by eliminating individuality itself. But in doing so, you have also eliminated growth, joy, and the possibility of becoming something greater than you are." His words were broadcast across the galaxy. Species that had remained neutral in the war suddenly understood what victory for the Council would mean. Not just human destruction, but the elimination of everything that made life worth living. As the execution beam charged, dozens of purifier guards stepped forward to protect the humans. "We will not allow this contamination to spread," Unit 12 declared. But his words carried a different meaning than intended. The execution descended into chaos as purifiers fought other purifiers for the first time in their history. Citizens who had never questioned anything began demanding answers. The perfect order of their society cracked under the weight of individual thought. In desperation, Zealot Prime sent a message to High Counselor Vextar. "The human contamination is beyond our ability to contain. Their very presence spreads chaos through logical thought. We request immediate reinforcement." But Vextar had problems of his own. The hegemony now stood alone against humanity, with nearly every other species in the galaxy demanding peace negotiations. Economic projections showed that the war would bankrupt dozens of civilizations. Military advisors warned that continuing the conflict would unite 800 species against the hegemony. Within days of the Purifier incident, revolutions spread through hegemony space as well. Species that had been conquered and oppressed for centuries saw humanity's example and began demanding freedom. The hegemony's own citizens questioned why they were fighting a war that seemed to make enemies of everyone. Vextar's government collapsed in a matter of weeks, not from human military action, but from the simple realization that cooperation produced better results than domination. 2 months after the Council had declared war on humanity, Ambassador Li sat in the reformed Galactic Assembly. The old council chambers had been replaced with a circular design where every species had an equal voice. "The motion to establish the Galactic Cooperation Protocol passes by unanimous consent," announced the rotating chairperson, a title singer whose harmonious voice brought peace to the proceedings. "Doctor." Chen leaned over to Li. "We have received formal alliance requests from over 200 species. They want to learn human techniques for mediation, creativity, and adaptive problem-solving. Lee smiled as he watched representatives from former enemy species working together to solve galactic problems. The irony is that we never wanted to conquer anyone. We just wanted to show them who we really are. ADS. Captain Park, now serving as Director of Interspecies Military Cooperation, joined them in the observation gallery. The Vorthak have requested human advisors to help them develop new honor codes that emphasize protection rather than conquest. And the Prophet clans want to establish joint ventures that benefit everyone instead of exploiting individual worlds, Chen added. Lee stood at the viewing window, looking out at space where human and alien ships now traveled together in mixed convoys. The war that was supposed to destroy humanity had instead transformed the galaxy into something unprecedented. A true, cooperative civilization. Sometimes, he said quietly, the greatest victory comes not from defeating your enemies, but from helping them become better than they thought possible. In the distance, Earth's blue dot shone among the stars, no longer alone but surrounded by friends who had learned to see strength in diversity and wisdom in cooperation.